And welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is LeAnn Lyon. I will be visible in a moment. And welcome, visionaries and changemakers, to Lead with LeAnn, where we navigate the waters of business with heart and purpose, airing every week at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, exclusively on winwinwomen.tv. I am LeAnn Lyon, your Chief Joy Officer, here to empower you with strategies, insights, and a splash of, fun. Each week on Lead with LeAnn, you'll join me as we delve into the inspiring stories of established leaders and innovative entrepreneurs. We'll uncover just what it takes to build a brand from scratch, lead with authority and grace, and turn business aspirations into tangible success. So, anchor down, set your sails, and let's dive into the art of joyful leadership. Get ready to be inspired because your journey to business brilliance starts right now. Because today we are thrilled to welcome an incredible upcoming author and business strategist, Natalie Perez, from the vibrant shores of Trinidad and Tobago. How cool is that? To becoming a powerhouse of resilience and inclusion in corporate America. Natalie's journey is nothing short of inspiring. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at 16. 16, can you imagine? And she turned adversity into strength, dedicating her life to fostering inclusive environments and living authentically. With over a decade in the corporate world and a passionate advocate for self-leadership, her upcoming book is tentatively titled Created to Rule: 8 Principles to Develop Self-Leadership, in which Natalie will share her remarkable story of resilience, transformation, and how she's making a difference in the workplace and beyond. So get ready to be inspired. Natalie, are you there? Come out.
I
Wherever
am,
you
I am. Hello.
Hey, Natalie, it's so good to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you. Great to be here.
It's so good to see you. It's been a little bit since we talked. We've connected though several times in preparation for this. The first time, not even about the podcast, but when I heard your story, I was like, oh, she'd be perfect. We need to get her on the podcast. And
Yeah.
here we are.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So, Trinidad and Tobago, you lived there.
Yes, I came to America in 2001. Just,
Okay.
and I was in Brooklyn, so it wasn't the best time to be in Brooklyn. But yeah, my mom, I think I got my resilience from her because she transformed our life by bringing us here. And in the Caribbean, it's known as the land of opportunities. So when you get an opportunity, you give it to someone else. So I'm so grateful to be here and to share my experience with resilience and my life, and hopefully lead others to their resilient self.
So, you say we, who else came over here with you and your mom?
So it was my mom. I'm one of three. So I have an older sister and a younger brother. So I'm the middle child. So I'm definitely the more sensitive one because I have to keep everyone in line.
Yeah, I sometimes joke about we have 2 daughters, and I sometimes joke about we lost a third miscarriage that we didn't plan, and I kind of sort of joke, but our youngest would have been a miserable middle child. Like it would not have served anyone or the world very well for her. And so while we miss the fact that we didn't get to meet this third baby, we know we will in the future, in
You
the
will.
to
You
come.
will.
And I look
I
forward
have two angel babies myself, and
to
I
it.
am looking forward to the day I meet them.
Yeah. Well, my daughters both said, we want a brother, we want a brother. So I sat them down one day. I said, you might have one. Here's the deal. You just gotta wait a while to meet, him probably. So
Yes.
anyway, someday we'll find out. It's all good. So on that brilliant start,
Yes, I know.
but really, I really wanted to just give some exposure, shine some light on you and your journey and your path. So you were here in the United States as a 16-year-old diagnosed with MS at 16. How scary was that?
Very scary. And especially coming from country like Trinidad and Tobago, I came here with grandiose dreams. I honestly came here, I was a big Backstreet Boys fan. So I really thought I was going to marry one of them. And when that diagnosis happened, I can remember the day I was in my high school gym class and I was roller skating with my friends. And one moment I'm roller skating, enjoying being 16. And then the next, I completely lost feeling in my leg. I don't know if you've ever experienced the pins and needles feeling. That's exactly what was happening, except it wasn't going away. It lasted for hours. So because it wouldn't stop, 2 days later, my mom took me to the hospital. They're like, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And then within a week, I had completely lost all usage of the left side of my body. So I couldn't do anything. So completely paralyzed on the left side. My face was drooped down and we had no idea what was going on. And the moment they told me that I had MS, I was in the emergency room because I got rushed to the hospital once I started losing feeling. And I can remember this tall, dark doctor walk in. I lived in Brooklyn at the time. And he just looked at me, and within a matter of what felt like seconds, he completely changed my life because he looked at me and he said, I know exactly what this is. You have multiple sclerosis.
Huh.
And within seconds, he changed my life and my dreams of the American dream, that once you come here, everyone has that American dream. I thought it was taken away from me instantly. I no longer thought I was lovable. I didn't think I was worthy of being loved. I was like, who's going to love me? Who's going to want to deal with a diagnosis such as this? I didn't understand it and I didn't know what it meant for my life, but I thought it took it away.
And it didn't,
It
clearly.
didn't. I
Because
am happy to say I am now a wife, a mom of 3. I've been working. As you can see, I have full mobility. So the things that our mind tells us when you get terrible news, sometimes you really have to take a step back and realize that you get to, in some way, decide how that's going to play out for you. And I grew up in church, so I always had a strong faith background. And when I got that diagnosis, I turned to my mom and I said, Mom, I'm only 16. This is not going to be okay. Like there is more for me to do in this world. I'm not going to surrender. And I was that bratty patient. I refused to sit in the wheelchair, refused to walk with the cane. I said to my mom, I'm not going to give my body the dependency. I'm going to walk again, and I'm going to walk without the cane. Yes, I did frustrate a lot of my nurses. Please, no one do that. It was just my story because I was just so determined that this was not going to be my story. It couldn't end this way. And I'm happy to say that I came from very humble beginnings and I'm still with very humble beginnings, but here I am living what I feel like is my dream.
well, happy ending to that story so far, or
So
happy
far.
happy chapters as we go. And of course, you have bigger dreams, I know as well. If I can delve, and again, I don't need to pry, and this is your personal life, but um, has that diagnosis played out? Because there are such things as misdiagnoses as well, of course.
Yeah, it has, but I am determined.
Yeah.
Mark my words, I'll be on your show next year and I'll say I completely reversed it. So I typical checkups, I do get the MRIs and they do confirm the lesions in my brain. However, I am absolutely determined to reverse it. I've read many great stories and met a lot of wonderful people who have done it. And I just figured, why not me?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm looking back here because I know I have a book. I'm sure we talked about it, but since we're talking about MS, if somebody is watching this live or ends up coming across the recording, it's and I'm looking for her book. I usually have it right here behind me. Yeah, Dr. Terry Walls. I'll just show it to you. I'm sure you've seen this one then.
Yes.
Yes. And in fact, I was on a phone call this morning with a dear friend of mine. We're fortunately having coffee tomorrow, but she has also treated MS with a with an FDA approved medical device that she just says completely changes things. But often comes down to diet. So
Diet.
Dr. Walls especially has a diet that she promotes. What have you found to be useful diet wise to help with what you do?
So diet wise, what I do, and I am not promoting, please
Yes.
Check with doctors first. I
Yeah.
have been intermittent fasting for about, I want to say 7 or 8 years now, and that I've been very, very on top of my health because of it. I think there is power in allowing your body to rest after meals. And one of the things that I found very, very helpful as well is like when you eat, try not to eat 3 hours before you go to sleep. That just allows that, break fast, allows your body to fast a little bit longer. So I do 7 to 11 most days. I also try to minimize a lot of artificial sweeteners. I gave up sugar for quite some time, which was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. I was very hangry. But I gave up sugar. I try to eat a lot more vegetables. So my plate's usually full with like a lot of broccoli.
Mhm.
I minimize my meat intake and red meat intake, just because that's a little bit harder for your body to break down, and your body does best when it's in that fasting because then it can heal. So those are some of the things that I've done so far.
Yeah. And that's tracks with a lot of things I've read by other people. In fact, my friend just said she's like, oh, I don't like intermittent fasting, but I know I do better when I do that. Fun fact though, and I have to look this up, you might want to as well. I recently did come across somebody saying that specifically cow, so that type of red meat actually does reduce inflammation in the body. And
Really?
so when MS and many other forms of, say, diabetes and stuff, anything that is an inflammation, theoretically they're saying, no, look, you need to have the good hamburger with good fat. Don't do the 90%, do the 85%. Get more fat in our diets. There's a big push out there by people who know to point people back to the fact that there was a big misstep in many ways back in the early 70s towards saying there's no correlated facts between heart disease and animal fat. But they tried to put it that way when actually it's more around seed oils and corn oils and things like that, not animal fat that's the problem. So red meat, they're saying, is actually potentially a really healthy meat.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's very interesting. And actually, what we started doing is we started getting our meat from a farm directly,
That's
to
pretty good.
minimize like the pesticides and all the hormones and stuff that goes into the meat. And I felt like I minimize my meat, but I'm not someone who says I'm vegetarian, because I know a lot of people who are looking to reverse this disease completely give up meat and dairy and things like that. But I haven't gotten to that point just yet. But
Yeah.
the meat that I'm getting from this farm seems to be really great, and it's supposed to be healthier. But it's been about 6 months since I've been just purely doing the farm meat as opposed to the grocery store meats. But we'll see how it tracks, because
Yeah.
I am determined to get that MRI with 0 lesions.
Yeah, for sure. Yay. Well, I'm pulling for you
Thank
100%.
you.
But meanwhile, you've also with at least a couple, you have a daughter at home, you said, correct?
I do. I
Yeah.
have 2 daughters and a son, a little boy.
Oh, okay. And they keep you busy, and yet you're also have been launching your business. So the
Yes.
name of your business is
Simply Inspired. My website will be Simply Inspired Thoughts, and I also have a website based on my name. And the idea behind it is that we all should lead inspired lives. We get this one chance to live this amazing life, and we often let things hold us back. So I have fallen in love with the process of becoming the best version of myself. And I just want to help others do the same.
so break down the word inspired.
For me, inspired starts with spirituality. As I said, I truly believe that we have to attain to something greater than ourselves, because I want to be better than even I think I can be.
Hmm.
So for me, it starts with spirituality. It also focuses on our mental capability, our positivity. What are the conversations we're having with ourselves? So one of the things I stopped doing personally is I do my best to never say any negative statements following the words I am. So that's something that I think to lead inspired lives, we have to speak to ourselves in a positive way in all circumstances.
Yeah. So inspire, from what I have read, is in spirit. So spirit meaning in God. That inspired can be of inspirational nature. Like it's not necessarily coming from in us, but more through us. And that's, one thing. And then at the conference I was just at, somebody broke down the words I am in a way I'd never heard before. Usually people say I, and then am is like, broken down a little bit. The word I, he broke down to mean exist. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. To say I is to say exist. And then am, he said, breaks down to with God. So I am breaks down to meaning exist with God, and then whatever you put after it.
Yes.
So I
I
thought,
love that. I'm gonna write that one down to keep in my memory banks because I love that.
yeah. So if
Yeah.
you, and again, what you say after those words are incredibly important, because if we say,
Incredibly
I
important.
am smart, I am capable, I am worthy, is a whole different ball of wax than anything, I won't even say the words,
Yeah.
putting in negative concepts after. So,
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I've found too is, especially with my MS, most people won't even know because it's not something I talk about a lot. And it's not because like I'm embarrassed or I don't want to talk about it. It's just that I don't want to keep claiming it as a reality.
sure, absolutely.
You
Well,
know,
I want
so
to dig a little bit more into that in just a minute, but right now I just want to quickly say, if anybody's watching or listening on the custom live streaming services that we are doing this is a live show. Come on over and join Natalie and I at winwinwomen.tv. You can click on the green button and you'll pop right in here. And you can ask Natalie or me any questions you might have about our conversation. We'd love to have you over here live. If you are listening to a recording, just know that you can come over here any Monday, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Central time is when Lead with LeAnn is live every week. And right now I'm interviewing the most amazing Natalie Perez. Just love working with her. So Natalie, we were talking about you're starting your business, and tell me about the what your business is doing. What's the core, what's the crux there?
so the core of my business is leading people to become the best version of themselves. One of the things that I talk about a lot is developing the resilient side of you.
Mhm.
And I learned this lesson from my daughter, actually. And I think we probably get into it a little bit more later. But she's 11 years old, and at 7, she decided she wanted to do a handstand. She just wanted to learn how to do a handstand, and she would day after day practice and practice and practice. It got to the point where she hurt her wrist and her ankle. And I said to her, once she finally learned how to do it, I was like, why did you keep going? Why didn't you give up once you hurt yourself? And she said, well, I already hurt my hand and I twisted my ankle. So I had to make the pain worth it. And ever since that, I think I felt as though she gave me a green light to embrace the storms. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ron Carpenter, but he talks a lot about the necessity of an enemy, which basically just says that when storms comes into your life, it's to push you to the next level. And I feel like my business is about pushing people to the next level because of the storms in their life and keeping them away from that victimhood of negative things happening.
And how do you do that?
I have a great program. I have a program called Rise that is on, actually, it's not on my website anymore. I took it on temporarily because I am reworking it, but there's a program called Rise. And essentially what Rise means is to recognize who's in control, internalize positivity, seek support, and embrace challenges. Because that's what we have to do. We have to rise above the challenges we face in life. And I want to help others rise above. So it's what my signature talk is focused on, it's what my program is focused on, so that I can help others do the same.
Got it. So We talked about, you said that you have some actionable steps to help cultivate resilience. Is that the RISE, RISE, or is it something? Oh,
That is
really?
the rise. Yes.
Okay. So
And I,
those are steps. And so when I think of steps, I think of, you have to do one before the next. You can't do the top step and then the middle step and then you have to do them in order. Is that true with the RISE, or is it more like all to be done at the same time?
you can do it whenever you feel like you're able to approach that step. I don't think it has to be done in order because of how it's listed. We have to embrace challenges. We have to recognize who's in control. And that's where my geeky side kind of came in, where I started to dive into neuroplasticity. And once you learn that there was once a belief that once the brain is formed, like it wasn't changeable. And now science is telling us like, no, your brain is malleable and you can like literally reshape your thought patterns. And I just love that stuff because I think of it as a valley, right? So when you have a negative thought, you're creating this valley in your brain. And in order to shape it, you have to constantly fill yourself with these, let's call them positive affirmations or positive thoughts to shift it away. And then that new neural pathway is developed in your brain so that your default mechanism is no longer negativity. In fact, I actually have my book here from church. And my pastor said something last week, and I was like, wow, that is so powerful. And I think people need to hear this. And he said, trauma always tries to make you go back into your earliest emotion or back to the old you.
Mm.
And I love that because it's so true. When we go through things and when we experience things, we tend to fall back into default mode. So if you were negative and you've spent 6 months trying to be positive, but something negative happens, sometimes your mind, your default mode might be like, oh, I'm terrible. I couldn't do it. And you have to train yourself to recognize what you're doing and say to yourself, like, I know what trauma does. I know what my trigger is. So I have to automatically counteract that. So that's why I love neuroplasticity. And I love the fact that they're now recognizing that our brains are malleable and we can change. So you are not stuck at that version of yourself.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think I shared with you, I'm missing part of my brain. Did I? Maybe not. Maybe I did. Yeah, I had an MRI last year and it was for my shoulder. And so, the doctor is a shoulder expert and she gave me the results of the MRI and she said, well, she said, the shoulder's fine. So we're going to do your neck. We did the neck MRI and then she's like, so I have a couple things to share with you. And she shared them and then she goes, there's one more. Um, and she looked really uncomfortable and said, you seem to be uh missing part of your brain.
Wow.
And I just laughed. And she's like, I didn't expect you to laugh. I said, yeah, probably not. But yeah, I said, is it over here? And she said, well, yeah. And I had a head injury 35
Wow.
years ago. And it did put me in the hospital for a week because they were watching for, brain swelling symptoms or signs. They never saw them, so they never did any surgery to release the pressure. My suspicion is that there was some that they could have,
Yeah.
but we'll never know. I have very little effect from that
Yeah.
issue, but it's nice to hear about the brain plasticity. The only issue I really have is I have a pretty, it's not 100%, but I do struggle with face blindness.
Oh.
So, and like people are like, well, what is that? I said, well, have you ever seen the movie or the show, The Chosen? Are you familiar with that, Natalie?
No, I'm not familiar.
Oh, check it out. First of all, you can get it for free on their own app. You can download the app called The Chosen. In their fourth series of being on TV. You can find it on Netflix and stuff like that. But it's Jesus and his 12 disciples, and they're all Middle Eastern men. They all look the same, their hair color is the same, their eye color is the same. And after watching 3 seasons of it, I can only identify 3 or 4 of them.
Wow.
Because I just can't differentiate with people very well, especially if they're changing places and positions. I would struggle with it in almost every movie. I'm constantly asking my husband, like, okay, is this the good guy or the bad guy? I can't tell the difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
First of all, I didn't know you can lose part of your brain and not know it. And I also didn't know about face blindness. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, me and let's see, who is it? Used to be married to Angela, Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt has it as well. So
The face blindness.
what's that? Yeah, face blindness. I
Wow.
think they think it affects up to 3 to 4% of the population, which is actually relatively high. I mean, that
Yeah.
means millions of people that have this to some degree. And but it's encouraging to think that there, maybe there's ways around it, or I probably have adapted a lot
Yeah.
to have the ability I do have, but it's a trouble, in large groups, like I was in a large group for the last 4 days. Every day, guess what? People change clothes. And then I
Yeah.
and then I can't find them again. Like I'm looking for the red jacket, but
Yeah.
that's what she wore yesterday. So I can't find the people if they change clothes.
Yeah. Wow. That is interesting. I never knew about that.
It's just a weird thing. It's not comfortable. But but such is life. Life is not always comfortable. Um but yeah, we talked also about the transformative power of being resilient and actionable steps. Are there any big mistakes that people make with regards to destroying their resilience?
Yes, and I touch on it a little bit with my daughter. A lot of the trainings that I've done personally, it talks a lot about turning your pain into your purpose. Because when we go through storms in life, it's meant to make us stronger.
Mm-hmm.
But what we tend to do sometimes is we tend to go into the victimhood of the stores. Like, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why not someone else? A lot of the times. And what I think that's the biggest mistake we make is seeing it as a hindrance rather than a stepping stone. And I would really recommend that book, The Necessity of an Enemy by Ron Carpenter, because it's so powerful when you come to talk about how to use storms in your life to create, to level you up in life. You're supposed to be bigger, better, and stronger after you face the storm. I think about it, if you have a rowboat, and you're trying to get through the storm and you can't, you're going to keep building that up until it can power through it. And I think that's what storms in life is meant to do, help us power through things. And that's what completely changed my life. I think that's what made me stand out and stand up a lot more, is the fact that when I face storms now, I let myself cry for about 30 seconds, maybe more, a day or two. But I always ask myself, and I tend to ask my kids, okay, that's the problem. What's the solution? What are we going to do about it? Because focusing on the problem alone is not going to help me. I need to understand the problem. I need to understand why I'm going through this, and I need to understand how to fix it. And then when I come out on the other side, how am I better because I just went through this? What have I learned? How can I help someone else? Because every storm you go through, there's someone that's going through it right after you, and you can turn around and help that person through. And that's what I'm learning through starting this business and working with others and being in rooms with entrepreneurs like myself who have their own programs, such as you and a lot of other beautiful, talented women that I've been able and blessed to work with, is that no matter what your life experience will allow you to help the next person. So even if you don't know how the storm helped you, I'm sure it can help someone else. You just have to turn back and reach out that hand and pull that person up, because life experience is the greatest teacher.
100% agree. Absolutely. I had this conversation with somebody just this morning about, some people say, well, bad things happen to good people, or, why did God let this happen to me? And I know you're a woman of faith. I believe we even met through a faith-based type community,
Yeah.
entrepreneur community. And there's so many out there that, go find your group. Over the weekend, by the way, I hung out with Ray Higdon, just saying. He's amazing. If you ever haven't heard his story, he was a multimillionaire, successful network marketer, trainer, all these things. 18 months ago, like a light switch, he found faith and boom, he changed everything in his life. Everything. His story is so inspirational. He was on the stage and then He has an event coming up this fall called Faith Over Fear, and I fully intend to be at that event. And it's for network marketers specifically, but he's just got a great story. Anyway, the point being, I also have a summit coming up, and I think we've talked about you being a speaker on it because the topic is, resilience. Resilience and renovation, reinvention. Sorry, my AI picked it for me. Resilience and reinvention, navigating new horizons in business. So I look forward to you coming in and sharing your resilience story again in September. That's now coming up September 17th through 20th. People are welcome to come over and start getting their tickets now. At this point, anybody who signs up now gets a free ticket to come to the summit. So I think that you'll be a great speaker on that. Yay. And you'll have your book, your book will be that much closer to being published.
Much closer, yes.
All good for sure.
It will be published January of 2025.
Yeah.
So
And I think I took a tangent there, but do you think, so the conversation this morning was around, does God put blocks in our way? Or does he just make it possible for us to get around the blocks that come our way?
I think a little bit of both.
Really?
Because you're dealing with human intention, so we think we know what's best for us.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example with my life. So last year was probably one of the toughest of my life, given that I have MS. It's surprising, but it was one of the toughest for my life corporate-wise. I started off the year crying to my boss because there was an expectancy and it didn't happen, and I was just so distraught. I was on Zoom crying. And I thought to myself, I didn't go to God. I didn't ask him any questions. I didn't seek God. I was just like, no, I'm done. I'm just doing what's best for me. And I took something that just turned out to not be the best option for me. And I fully believe now, because my health started to decline. I've always been really great, top grade health, and it started to decline. And I believe that God put a block on that situation for me. He allowed me to exit gracefully. He did, because that's just how he was. He turns our mess into a message. And now it's a message for me, because I do think you have to lead with God. So I do think he put blocks in your way when you're trying to lead it yourself, and he needs you to steer a different direction. Yeah. And then he also, when you have a roadblock that's not put there by him, he'll guide you around it. That's how I look at it, just because I think it's a little bit of both with him.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of question, just because on the one side, I know you and I believe God is love, only good, and yet there's examples, especially in the Old Testament, of a very angry God and a very even vindictive in some cases. But, in New Testament, we hear only love and forgiveness, and mostly. But, so could something that's love-based put anything in that would block? But I think I hear what you're saying. I also feel like I've been redirected a few times when, like, okay, enough. I've been trying to steer you. Here's your wall.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I need you over there. Go.
I'm looking, get out that way. Yes, I truly believe that too. And it's so funny that you bring up that conversation. And you mentioned that, because I'm reading the Bible fully through right now.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've been contending with is the different images of God that we get throughout the Bible. So like you just mentioned, in the Old Testament, you see a God that has some wrath, and you're wondering, okay, is God full of wrath? And then Jesus comes, and then just yesterday I was reading where he said, I know it said to you, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, but I told you, if someone slaps you, turn the other cheek, which is a totally different message. And it could get a little bit confusing. I wouldn't say confusing. I'll say it makes you want to research a little bit deeper on how to interpret these things and how we should be reading the Bible. I think one of the things that my situation last year kind of pushed me towards was diving deeper into the word. And I found a lot of great groups. I work with the Kingdom Seekers now. And what that has allowed me to see is like God in a different lens. I grew up very religious based, and now I'm starting to see God almost outside of religion, like how I believe how he was truly
Right.
meant to be seen in the messages he truly sent to us. Now I see the Bible as the Constitution, the way that we're supposed to, it's a book of laws and how to live and prosper in this world.
Yeah, truly. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot to I also transitioned from religion to relationship, and there's just a huge difference between following a religion that tells you you do this, you do this, you believe this even,
Yeah.
to a religion that says you are loved, you are worthy, you are wanted, and and the relationship is here. And yes, I believe in community. I go to church, but scripture, but the church I attend now is scripture based.
Yes.
Nothing is because the pastor said so, which
Yeah.
is kind of how I was raised. So it's just very different. And for anybody listening and being it just I'm going to throw this out here because I just feel the calling on my heart to do this, but anybody listening on recording or live even, if you've never read the book of John, which is in the New Testament, if that's the only book in the New Testament you've ever read, just even out of curiosity, go read the book of John.
Yeah.
It will challenge you. It will, but it might break your heart, but it also might break your heart open to something that, if you've not had this love, this acceptance, I just would love for you to have that. So anybody listening, recording, otherwise, please let me know if you do. I would love to hear from you. And with that, can you believe it? Our time is just flying by. I have another question for you. But first of all, anybody listening again on the live custom streaming service, come on over to winwinwomen.tv, and guests that are in the waiting room. We're going to stop this recording in just a few minutes and have a live interaction time. So anybody listening to the recording of this, because you didn't know, be here next week, and we'll do a lot, every week, 4 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Pacific, and engage with us live with me and my guests. We'd love to have you over here. So Natalie, I know we've talked about, our lives and our businesses and all, all of our adulting things. Isn't adulting fun?
It
And
is.
I have adult daughters. You're raising little still. So you're in the throes of a lot of things.
Yes.
Your oldest is 11. And then your next oldest is how old?
7. So they're 4 years apart,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
2012, 2016, and 2020. I didn't plan it that way. That was God. So
There you
he
go. I
gave me a
just
break in between.
a friend and client of mine they had their third baby just
Yeah.
like 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and born on the 23rd, the same day of the month as both of her sisters.
Wow.
All three of their children. Yeah, that's has a really low probability of happening, but
Very low.
we
Yeah.
know it's going to happen. We know it. God, we've heard it. It's going to happen this way, and it did.
Yeah.
Any sort of induction or anything. It was pretty cool. But so you have children 7 and 11. So do you remember you've been through the 9-year-old stage where the 7-year-old you wouldn't leave home alone, but the
Mhm.
11-year-old's getting closer to being able to on their own. But in that precious in between where you have some autonomy. So I'm asking you to take yourself back there when you were about 9 or 10. When you had the autonomy to go out, do things, make decisions about how you were going to spend your summer day or your Saturday, what did you choose to do?
So I would say I was a very rare breed. At 9 years old, I could specifically remember staying inside. So we haven't talked about this side of my life. I also act. I'm an actress, and I love acting. So one of the things at 9 that I was still in the Caribbean at the time, and we had, I don't remember the name of the show, but we had like a sketch comedy show on TV. And I was introduced to Disney Channel I believe that summer as well, because it was 85, 95, not 85, 95 around. And I was obsessed with Disney Channel. I was obsessed with this sketch comedy show. And I just loved watching people perform. So I would spend just my entire time inside. And this sounds so bad now because watching TV is so terrible, but that's what I would do. And not just because I just always wanted to be one of them. I was just like, oh my gosh, that looked like so much fun. I want to do that. And I was in church and I started acting in church. So I would say I was actually an inside person, and it was because I was obsessed with the idea of being on TV. So I just loved the sketch comedy shows and I loved watching Disney Channel, and I just wanted to watch those things.
Maybe you should start a podcast.
Maybe.
I had the same idea. I actually got into acting school. I was admitted. I didn't end up going, but I was selected to go into acting school in junior high school, which would have been at age, 10, 11 kind of age. So yeah.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, what I wouldn't give. I did a lot of side stuff. So I was in my church drama club for years.
Yeah.
I did a lot of community theater. Now I do a PNN, a series on YouTube, which has been a lot of fun. I just think you have to explore that creative side. You have to I have a passion for Christ. I have a passion for acting. I have a passion for my kids. I have a passion for healing the world. And I think once I'm me in all of those facets, I always say, like, I don't like to have to unmask myself. I don't want to have to be different when I'm acting, when I'm here or at church. I want all of that. All of me is brought everywhere. So yes,
Wonderful.
acting is a huge part of who I am too, and just because I love that. I love the process of diving into characters and becoming something and exploring those emotions. It's so much fun. I actually work with a really, really talented coach, and she's just been amazing.
Oh, phenomenal. I
Yeah.
did do acting through church as well. I
Yeah.
haven't really done it since, not in college or any community stuff at all, but I think teaching is very much a stage. I was a teacher for 5 years. I still teach, right? So
Yeah, you
I'm
do.
still teaching. I'm still, and I wouldn't call it acting, but certainly presenting is its own form of, that. And so, like you, I, as a child, did a lot of that type of thing, imagining being in front of stages and in front of people. And that's funny then that here we are, fast forward a few years, few decades, here we are, and that's what we're doing. And we still find it fulfilling. I think God speaks to us at that age. I think we know more who we are then than we do 5 years later in the early teens, is when we often lose ourselves. So I that's one of my favorite questions to ask is, who were you before you forgot who you are?
Yeah. I think culture do that. And one of the things I've noticed being in HR is COVID kind of reshaped us, because there was a portion of my life where I stopped acting. And once COVID happened, I reevaluated and I was like, what are the things I'm not doing? Because when you're dealing with something as a pandemic, and most of us were scared. I have three little ones. I was expecting a baby at the time. One of the things I did was reevaluate my life, and I was just like, I need to get back acting. I need to do one of the things that I love. And that, I think, once you start exploring what makes you, what makes you tick, you get braver, because then you give yourself permission to show up fully as yourself. And I love it. Like, there was a time when I wouldn't even mention that I do acting. I would always say, like, oh, that's just on my side. But now I embrace it. I love it. And yes, my name is not on like movie screens or anything like that, but it's still so much fun, and it's still such a huge part of me. So I love it. And now I love talking about it. So I'm embracing all of me.
And if you embrace all of you, if you embrace who you're called to be, if you embrace that nugget that was put into us before we were born, does that help with resilience?
It does.
Um,
It does. Simply
well,
put,
with
it does.
that, could we end on a better note?
Yeah, then we started, yes.
where we started, right? I know
Yeah.
you have a special gift. You said that you have a resilience discovery worksheet. Can you tell people where to find you? Where's the best way to find you besides your websites, which you have Natalie Job Perez.com. You also have inspired,
Simplyinspiredthoughts.com.
inspired, right?
Yes.
And what else on social media?
So I am really terrible. I'm too young to be bad at social media, but I don't remember my handles right now. But I'm pretty sure Instagram. On Facebook, I have a group, Simply Inspired Thoughts group and page. And then I also have at Natalie Joe Perez on Instagram. And if you would love to get the resilience worksheet or any other of the tools, I do have a 30-day biblical confidence builder as well on my website. You can email me at nataliejoperez.com.
And that's Jobe Perez, Perez, for anybody that's listening to this on all 40 networks that carry this audio podcast. So thank you, Natalie. It's been so good seeing you. I look forward to seeing you again in September if those dates work out. Of course, I'm doing the summit again in January, which I think is your target date for your book. So, we can play around with which date would be best for your appearance, or maybe both, Who doesn't need a little extra resilience in their lives? So thank you for being here today. Any final word?
My final word would be go out and be you. Be brave, be you. Live the life. We are so unique. I actually just learned this, and I'll end on this. I just learned, and I believe it was from Pastor Rick Warren. I love him too. I listen to him a lot. Purpose-driven life. He said that every heartbeat is different. I knew every fingerprint was different, but I had no idea every heartbeat is different. That's how unique you are. There's no one else in this world like you. There's no one else that's going to live your experience. So live it boldly, and share it with the world.
I love that. Love that, love that. And truly. So on behalf of Natalie, I want to thank everybody listening live on recordings, on custom live streaming, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us on this journey to unleash your joyful business potential. Remember, leadership is a voyage that we can take together. So keep shining and aligning with your purpose. And come on back next week and every week at 2 p.m. Pacific time, exclusively on winwinwomen.tv for our next inspiring episode. So until next time, this is LeAnn Lyon, your Chief Joy Officer, signing off to keep you leading with heart. And I'll catch you on the next wave of success.